What's going on, YouTube? I'm Scotch.
And I'm Sniff.
And we are
Scotch
and Sniff.
We're back
We're back.
for another episode of your favorite whiskey show.
Your favorite whiskey show.
And if it's not
your favorite whiskey people.
You're our favorite whiskey people. So that's where we're going with that. You guys put it in comments. We're finally getting around to a bunch of those comments. I don't know, we could call this season 5. I don't know what's going on, but we finally got around to a bunch of your comments. One of the biggest, hottest comment topics, #1 search things that people are always looking for is for information about Japanese whiskey. And we happen to be in the golden age of, hey, we just made some new rules in Japan. If you're a part of the whiskey making association over there, and yeah, no, they're trying to make some new rules, so they're going to change things. So let's
Good old interwebs.
yeah, let's talk about it. So the biggest
ambiguity.
ambiguity,
Ambiguity.
aluminium.
Aluminium.
So one of the biggest problems that Japanese whiskey had before was there were no rules for terroir.
No rules.
So
Ruleless.
Scotch whiskey has to be obviously aged for 3 years and a day in Scotland.
In Scotland.
American bourbon has to be aged in America.
Not just in Kentucky or in Bourbon region.
Oh, that's
In America.
You guys already know that.
Ah.
You guys know that. And then Japanese whiskey had no rules, so people were doing all kinds of crazy things. One of the most famous things that was getting done was over here, Nika from the Barrel. Everybody was like, ooh, I got this Japanese blend, it's delicious, but some of it was Ben Nevis from Scotland, so a lot of people were like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And so all of this stuff adding up with a bunch of different small brands trying to sell whiskey and jump onto the hype has created all kinds of mayhem. And so the Japanese Spirits and Liqueur Makers Association, JSLMA, got together and decided...
The Jizlama.
The Jizlama. Sorry, it's the easiest way for me to remember. But they got together and they decided that we're going to make some rules about the whiskey we're creating so that we can follow these rules and we're going to be good to go. Did you want me to read those off?
Yeah, actually, because the rules are they sound very similar to Scottish rules.
Yeah.
Except made in Japan, which you would think is pretty straightforward.
But it is not.
And to the point, but it's not. And we'll go through a couple of these and tell you
like
why.
Like this, product of Japan.
With Ben Nevis.
So,
which Ben Nevis is good.
It's not bad. It's just not Japanese.
In a blend, it will probably fill holes of whatever Nika had.
Gross. But it's just not Japanese, though.
Yeah, not fully Japanese.
Ben Nevis? I don't think it's Japanese at all.
No, Nika.
Oh, right. So, let's see. Raw ingredients. Raw ingredients must be limited to malted grains, other cereal grains, water extracted in Japan. Malted grains must always be used. Cool. Product.
Water extracted from Japan. So, using ingredients from the land.
Which is weird because, like, it shouldn't matter where the water's coming. It's different. We'll talk about that in bottling.
Go further into that.
We'll talk about that in a second. Production. Saccharification, fermentation, distillation must be carried out in a distillery in Japan. Alcohol content at the time of distillation must be less than 95%. This is normal. Aging. Distilled product must be poured into wooden casks not exceeding the capacity of 700 liters and matured in Japan for a period of at least 3 years thereafter. So for the 700 liters thing, Scotland did the exact same thing, but Madeira drums are the biggest ones out there, coming in at 6 to 650 liters. Nobody's really doing 700 liter casks, but it's whatever. Bottling, this is weird to me because bottling can be cheaper elsewhere, and I don't think this really matters for the product, but
could be, but I think it's like the final. It's the final thing that you have to do.
They're just trying to make it all Japanese. Right. Bottling must take place only in Japan with alcoholic strength of at least 40%, which is normal for whiskey. But the only in Japan thing, that seems weird to me because there are other brands.
We were just talking about Shinola.
Oh, no, right here. Kayo. Kayo is actually completely made in Japan. It's a Japanese product through and through. It's Japanese whiskey through and through, but they bottle it in America. Which is weird because they're shipping the barrels, and I guess maybe that's cheaper than you get into these tax laws about where you're bottling your whiskey, and that can create some kinds of issues.
Not just that, but
money.
Would you ever think that a Scottish whiskey would barrel in America? No, they would create the product and then ship it in bottles over.
They do bottle sometimes in America when people get single casks.
Oh, well, yeah. That's very, very niche. Like you're one person buying or one company buying. Yeah. But I think it would just be it helps. I guess remain true to the heritage of what it is. You want to do everything in country and then bring it over, and then it's like, oh, okay, this is that product.
Yeah. And then the last rule, of course, as with all whiskey, plain caramel coloring can be used. Oh, so we got you down more. Anyways, I personally think that maybe they went a little too far because this only defines just Japanese whiskey.
Like too macro.
Yeah, so just like with other whiskey brands, companies, distilleries, everything else around the world, I think they should have said Japanese single malt and called this the single malt category. Because now we're throwing out things like a blend like Hibiki wouldn't be able to say Japanese whiskey on it. It would have to say something else. Even though it's absolutely Japanese whiskey, because it's a blend and doesn't follow under these rules, we're really getting vague and strange other things that kind of apply that we need to, I don't know, that we need to talk about. Like this Kaya wouldn't be able to be called Japanese whiskey because they bottle it somewhere else. That seems like a really weird reason to not call it Japanese, even though it's 100% Japanese.
Just more specifics that need to be worked out. Like, the difference between made in Japan or Japanese whiskey or product of Japan. Like, all of these things haven't been decided. And like Sniff was telling me before, this isn't in law or anything yet. So it's kind of just in the inception, which seems a little late to the game since a lot of Japanese whiskeys are already, disappearing and they're, so it's like, okay, but people want to know and people want these things established so that there are rules in place.
So, well, it protects the consumers too, so you're actually buying Japanese whiskey. Because there's a list going around. There's a guy who works over in Japanese distilleries, an English guy, and basically he made a list of, I think it was 130 different whiskeys that are out there. And then he actually went and tried to trace back each of these whiskeys to where they go. And 52 of them were actually Japanese whiskey. A handful were world whiskey, which are blends like if you blend Scottish with Japanese or Canadian with Japanese. And then the rest of the ones on there weren't Japanese whiskey at all.
There's a good diagram that you showed.
Yeah,
we can link that up in the...
Yeah, we can throw that in the link so you guys can see that. But basically, there's a lot of fake Japanese whiskey.
You'd be really surprised that what you might have been thinking, oh yeah, I have a Japanese whiskey. You go down and search through it, and sure enough, it's not Japanese. It's a world whiskey or...
But some of them have other categories. Like Japan and Asian countries have always had a different category for rice whiskey. Korea calls it soju, the #1 selling spirit in the world.
Japan calls it sochu.
So they have, like Oishi right here, is now selling their stuff as Japanese whiskey, Oishi whiskey. But the thing is, technically it's sochu. It's rice whiskey. They've been doing that for a long time. And part of this transparency that we need in Japanese culture, because we don't have like this is Japanese whiskey rule, like this already fell in another category. At what point were they thinking, let's make a couple of extra bucks by calling it whiskey, and then, the Americans will buy it because it's got kanji on it and we're going to be good to go. And at what point were they like, maybe we should be a little more honest? But again, it's not like they're being deceptive here.
Because it is a grain.
But your regular consumer, not you, because you're an enthusiast, that's why you're watching this, but like the regular consumer is going to go in the store, see kanji, and go, oh my gosh, Japanese whiskey.
Let me buy this.
I found some on the shelf because I know it's so hyped right now.
And then I can sell it for like way, 10x.
But nobody will hype this because it's literally rice whiskey. Yeah. So
it still tastes good. Well, I haven't tasted it, but it smells good.
It's tasty.
It smells good. It smells sweet, like rice whiskey.
And that's the thing. So we have rice whiskey in America. Buffalo Trace did a whole set of experiments with it, and it was lighter. It was a little more palatable. It was interesting. But like that's the thing. We just need clarity for all this other stuff. Like Buffalo Trace did that, and they put it under their experimental line, and all of those bottles say exactly what's going on. They don't call it bourbon because it's not. They say exactly what's going on inside the bottle, what they made it out of, the grain, everything else, and that gives you clarity as a consumer for what it is you're buying. In the Japanese market, that's missing. Now the JSLMA is trying to put that together, and so hopefully we get there. Hopefully it gets turned into law. Hopefully
with the help of Jislama, we'll try and see if we can't get this sorted.
They're gonna clean it up so that they can get it sorted, so they can get all these rules, so they can get all the ideas. Like these are like our guidelines in place, and then once all the guidelines are good and all the distilleries agree to it, I'm sure they'll be like, hey Japan, look, Jislama's like, hey, we need to get this done.
We already have a mascot for Jislama, like.
Well, we could do a llama as a mascot, but I think the other half of the mascot is,
could just be a stain.
In the shape of a llama. It's just a llama stain. Gross.
Yeah.
We should make stickers.
Oh, it'll stick.
No,
Back to the whiskey.
All right, so that's it. So you guys really wanted this video. You wanted to know where Whiskey Hype was. Whiskey Hype obviously is still at an insane all-time high, as Yamazaki 18 mini bottles are still going for thousands of dollars, which makes 0 sense.
And Yamazaki 18 is good, but it's not $1,000 good.
I don't even think it's $250 good after trying it blind, actually.
When it comes down to it, you spend your money wherever you want to spend your money, but we're trying to find values in, where your money will go the furthest.
And like literally you'll get more value if the Japanese whiskey you're buying is actually Japanese whiskey.
Like so sad, Hibiki. Oh, the 17.
But it's still going to be legit Japanese blended whiskey. We all know it. It's not going to change what they're doing because some brands are sticking to being ethical from the beginning. And some brands are, doing their own thing, trying to make some money. Which, I mean, if you're trying to make money, I get it. But at the same time, like...
It will get found out later, sooner or later, especially with enough digging and searching.
That's what happens.
And just llama.
So there you go. What are you guys' thoughts on this? Is this the Japanese whiskey video you wanted? Are we missing some stuff that
These aren't the Japanese whiskeys you're looking for.
Oh, but aren't they? Are there things you wanted us to cover in the Japanese whiskey that we didn't get to? Let us know in the comments down below. I know we're gonna crack this one later today. That's exciting. It's cast strength using our cast.
Yo.
I mean, I assume that's what the long line is for the O. But yeah, so like, comment, subscribe. You already know it's YouTube. Merry Christmas. We're not even close to Christmas. I feel like there's still snow on the ground.
It'll come back around.
Close enough.
Yeah,
Christmas will be back.
Nice. Are you able to stop it there?
No. Oh.